Okay, hi, this is Will, and now we're going to have a few videos that just talk about counters. We had just gone through the timers, and now we're going to look at counters. And counters are used, quite a bit in automation. If you want to know how well you're doing, you have to count how many items have I produced, and so you have to use counters to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look, and as usual we're going to get rid of our green lamp and we're going to put a counter in here. And this setup screen is pretty similar to the timer screen. So we have a counter number, a set point, and the thing about counters is, for a timer it's just T1, so you'd think, well, maybe for counter it's C1. It's not quite that, because the C is used for our internal memory bit, so that's already taken. So to find out what it is, all these things also have ellipses, and anything that you could possibly use will be in there. Now for the counter we only have one series, but it's a CT, so we'll just go with CT1, and we'll put in a set point. We don't want to count too high, so we'll just count to 6. And just like the our counter, so it's CT1, and the completion bit is also called CT1, and then this current value is CTD1. So as we're actually taking a look at the real time as we're counting up, we can see that'll be our actual how many have we counted. And here we can either select count up, count down, or count up and down, and we'll have short little videos. If you understand count up, I mean, it's automatic for countdown. Up and down, because you're trying to do both, it takes a little more control, and we'll have to do a couple extra fancy things for that. And we are kind of limited in our control push button. We've only got the 3 push buttons, and we'll have to kind of accommodate that as best we can for doing both up and down. Anyway, we'll put this on our screen, and right now we've got our counter in here. So now, just like we have before, when we finish counting up, we're going to light the green lamp. So we need to insert a rung afterwards, and again, this will be our normally open contact. This will be CT1, and the output is going to be an output coil, and this will be Y003. Okay, and now this, when we put these timers or counters in here, these are outputs just like a timer. Now when we put any of these boxes on here, if there's this little stub, you see how this reset has a little stub that goes to kind of our demarcation point between this cause side and the effect side. Anytime you see something like that with a stub, you've got to connect that up. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a normally open contact, and this will be to our reset push button on our control panel, and we're going to have to put it in align mode and connect up, and that should be what we want. So right now, when we go live with our program, and I'll just do that for what we have right now. When I write this into my PLC, what's going to happen is when we first get the start process signal, it's going to count. It's going to make its initial count, and we're okay with that, and we'll put it in run mode. So, and right now it's at 6. This is telling you what the current value is, and so I'm going to reset that. Now, as soon as I hit the start push button, this start process is going to go high, which is going to count to 1. So I'm going to press my start push button, and we count to 1. Now, so what that means is when it counts, it's looking for a transition from that inactive state to the active state. So as soon as that conducts, as soon as it transitions from low to high, as soon as it sees that conduction through here, it's going to count. Now it's not going to count again. Well, I can count again if I hit stop and go out of start process and then go back into start process, it'll count to 2. And we don't really want to do that. Well, I can do that a few more times and we can just see that it counts continuously as I press between start and stop. So this will be the last one, and now when I hit start, we'll get the terminal count and our green lamp will turn on. And that's fine, and that's the way it should work, but that's not a very good way to do it, just having to hit the start and stop all the time. We are, again, limited by our number of push buttons, but what I really want to do is I want to put in my start push button as how we're going to count. And so this will be X002, and I'm going to put that in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload it into the PLC, and we'll take a look at that with the start push button. Now the thing about this is, because when I hit my, well, let's go into run mode, and we're at 6 again, so I'll hit reset. When I hit the push button to start it, we go to start process, and my finger's still on the start push button because my fingers aren't that fast. So we're going to count to 1 no matter what. I mean, I'd like to have to push this start push button 6 times to get to the terminal count, but because it's on the start, my finger's still on the push button when this goes high, I'm going to get that first count. And, well, we have to just accept that as the way it's going to work. Now, there are a couple ways around that, but we'd have to use some advanced, well, not advanced, but instead of using just push buttons, we can use edge triggers, which, if you looked in the instructions for the contacts, there's normally open, normally closed, and then, if I can get this right below it, there's these things called edge contacts. And what that is you're looking for either a rising edge or a falling edge for these signals. And normally that's how you do it for any digital inputs for push buttons, because you really don't want to have it whether you've got your finger on there for 1 second or 1 minute. You really want to do it the instant that you press that push button, but that's a little too advanced for what we're doing. So just accept as fact that when I first start out, we're going to get an initial count of 1. So I'm going to put into start process mode, so my red lamp is going to go out, and we do get a count of 1. So now I'm going to use my start push button. I've got to press it 5 more times so we can get to count of 6. And now when I go to 6 and I press it 1 more time, we'll get the count complete, and then our green lamp will turn on. So here's press number 6, and so that goes on. Now I also want to show you, just like the timer, if I keep on pressing this, it'll count beyond our terminal count. Now with a timer, that's okay, especially for the T-on timer. You can have it count up and up, but normally for your counter, you set that set point at a value because you want to do something. So normally when that gets to that terminal count, we have it lighting the green lamp, but normally in a regular process that means you need to do something additional. So you don't normally go beyond the count point. Now because the start process is already set, now I can actually press it 6 times to get to there. I won't have that initial problem that we had before, and that'll happen, it's kind of the first time through. And actually, if I wanted to, another way around it, so we can change it with using edge contacts, but another thing is if I wanted to take a look at this. So if I wanted to change this, so how do I do that? So I'm going to change this contact, and instead of this being my start push button, I'm going to flip-flop the start and the reset. So I'm going to make this X003, which is my reset, and then I'm going to make this my X002, which will be my start. So it's going to look counterintuitive having me start going into reset and my reset being the counter, but now I won't have that initial problem where it automatically counts to 1 the very first time through. At least that's what I'm thinking. So let's take a look at this and see if that does the trick. So when I push this in here, and actually this will do two things for me, because now when I turn it on, now we have 6 in here. When I hit my initial start push button, that'll reset it to 0 and it'll set up my start process, but it won't make that initial count. So let's see if that'll work. So I am going to turn on, well, I'm going to press the start push button. That gets me back to 0 and I have not made a count. So now anytime I want to count, I'm going to count with my reset push button. And so that kind of took care of two things. So it took care of my initial resetting it. Oop. Oh, I'm pressing the reset. So when I press the start push button, it resets to 0. And that would also, and let's just take a look at it again. I'm going into stop mode, so my red lamp's on. But when I first turn on for the start process, I'm resetting, well, let's I'm resetting my counter, but I'm not making the initial count. And I'm only counting when I hit the reset push button. So that kind of took care of two problems with that. And the only thing is we have the wrong signal hooked up. We have our start to reset and our reset to count, which is kind of awkward. But if we wanted to, we could rename these numbers just for this function. But I think we're going to, when I go forward, next time out, we're going to look at the down counter. I think I'm going to have this type of setup where the start actually is, the reset will be what we use for count. And because we use the start for the start process, that seems better that it goes into the reset. But we'll take a look at that for the down counter. It's the same type of thing, except counting up, we're going to be counting down. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.